The time is 10 o'clock. Good morning to everyone. I will now call the regular meeting of the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board to order. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, we are conducting the monthly October board meeting today via video teleconference. I will now call the roll of board members that are present on this teleconference. When I call your name, please say yes. Steve Sullivan.
Yes.
Dr. Colbert. Dr. May. Candace White. Heather Allen.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Talley, do we have any introductions this morning?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay. Do we have any public recognitions this morning?
No, sir.
Okay. We down to the approval of minutes. The minutes of the regular board meeting held on September the 16th, 2020 were distributed electronically for your review. Are there any changes to the minutes by board members?
Not for me.
Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving on to the public comment. Mrs. Hampton, has anyone from the public registered to make a comment this morning?
No, sir, Chairman Hilton.
Okay. Has anyone from the public provided written comments?
Not this month, thank you.
Very good. Are there any other members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this teleconference? Please raise your hand by teleconference. This is a feature that you can find on the bottom of your screen, or pressing *3 if joining by phone, and you will be called upon.
Chairman Hilton, this is Rachel. I'd just like to note that board member Candace White has joined the meeting.
Okay. As Dr. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Coburn has also joined the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hampton, does anyone else wish to speak this morning?
This is Andy Purden. I see no raised hands in the attendee list.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. Moving right along, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business this morning. New business. There is no new business. Committee reports. The committees have not met since the last board meeting. Mr. Talley, we at the director's report. Mr. Talley.
Thank you, Chairman Hilton, and good morning to the board and to our guest. As indicated on the agenda, there will be 2 additional presentations this morning as part of the director's report. That being said, I will try to keep my preliminary remarks brief to allow ample time for those presentations and then any questions that the board may have. I would also like to take a few minutes in my report to follow up on some points that I've been making over the last several board meetings regarding environmental justice and equity. So let's get started. Just a little bit of the month that was. Our work with EPA on an odor app is moving forward nicely. The original test version was only available on the iPhone platform, but an Android version should be available soon, which will allow for wider testing. And I really want to be clear here, if it hasn't been said before and not been made clear before, this project is not being designed to replace the Smell My City app. We understand that the Smell My City app has become an integral part of our community's complaint submission process. The new app is simply a new tool in the toolbox. looking at some new features that may be of benefit to the community and to the investigative process. If successful, it'll be utilized across the country where needed. We are just fortunate to be working with EPA on this research. We learned so much through the process, and hopefully it will provide some additional tools that will be a benefit to our community and then the work of the district. Moving on, Michelle and her team continue their work on the multi-pollutant stakeholder group project, reviewing, prioritizing, and preparing the recommendations that were made to be presented to the larger community. So stay tuned for that. APCD, as we have for some time now, participated in the most recent Kentucky State Division for Air Quality Clean Air Task Force meeting. This always provides an excellent opportunity for us to get an overview of the clean air work going on at the state level over the past year, and then it also allows us to bring folks from across the state up to date on some of the things that are going on here in Louisville. Just an excellent opportunity for a little interchange and to learn what's going on elsewhere within the state of Kentucky. A week or so ago, I had the opportunity to take part in a virtual meet and greet with Carolyn Freeman. Ms. Freeman just recently became the director of ARD, which is the Air and Radiation Division for EPA Region 4. She brings many years of experience, and we look forward to working with her and fully expect to maintain the excellent working relationship that we have created over the last several years with our federal counterparts at Region 4. Two last things that I want to go over before we segue into the next portions of the director's report. First, we have continued our biweekly meetings with MSD, as I've described previously, and their presentation that will follow this morning will bring the board up to date on those efforts. And then secondly, this afternoon, Rachel, Michelle, and I will make a presentation before a national audience at the NACA, the National Association of Clean Air Agencies, during their second day of their virtual fall meeting. Our topic today will be state and local initiatives to advance equity. As you know, over the last few meetings, I have addressed different aspects of environmental justice and equity work that lies before the district. It is an issue that has risen as a priority across the country. The district has participated in discussions at the national, regional, state, and local level. We try to learn from each discussion so that we can apply the best ideas here in Louisville. I want to continue that theme and try to tie it all together this morning. Perhaps outside of climate change, and even it can have some very localized impacts, many of the most dangerous and pressing environmental hazards in the U.S. today are highly localized. And in a country and a world where overwhelming residential segregation based on race, ethnicity, economic status, and religion are still a fact of day-to-day life, this inevitably means that impacts of environmental hazards are also tied to these characterizations and divisions. It should then come as no surprise to anyone to learn that those most frequently exposed to environmental hazards and the inherent health impacts are in these segregated communities. And in America, this most often means communities of color and poverty. If we're to deal with these issues, we must have a plan and we must change how we look at the problem. As I've discussed the issue of environmental justice for the last several board meetings, I've tried to establish and frame the work that lies ahead. In July, I established environmental justice amid all the other equity issues sparking social unrest as an important component of our social equity issues that our community faces, and that environmental justice must be made a priority because there are parts of our community that bear a disproportionate share of the city's environmental burden. Lastly, in that meeting, I called for the development of a metro-wide environmental justice policy. At the August board meeting, I discussed the MSD notice of violation for odors, pointing out that this too was an environmental justice issue for sections of our community. Fortunately, today, MSD will provide a presentation addressing the NOV issued by the district and their plans to address the issue in West Louisville and ultimately throughout Louisville. Then, in September, my director's report highlighted the district's meetings with Develop Louisville and other metro partners about the Land Development Code reform. And talked about how current land development and zoning regulations impact environmental justice from an air quality perspective, specifically addressing the need to allow environmental justice communities the opportunity to have meaningful input early in the decision process for developments in their community. I also discussed that environmental justice does not occur in an APCD-only vacuum, and that multiple agencies across metro government will need to be involved to implement meaningful and lasting change. In fact, and very timely to this discussion about land development reform, there will be 3 public meetings to give the community an opportunity to weigh in on the changes that will be proposed to reform the land development code. The dates and times are posted on our website, but you can get a placeholder here on your calendar. And these meetings will be held, the first one Saturday, October the 24th at 10 a.m., then on Monday, October the 26th at 10 a.m., and then lastly, on Tuesday, October the 27th at 6 p.m. I can't stress enough, if you have the opportunity, please try to participate. These will be important conversations and reforms for our community. This morning, I'd like to add 3 concepts for you, the board, to consider. Your understanding and input will be important as we move forward. Unfortunately, there is no exact playbook out there on how this should be done in terms of addressing environmental justice and equity issues. Other communities are obviously grappling with and addressing similar concerns, but no 2 communities are exactly alike. We all have different histories, demographics, resources, and other dynamics that shape our needs and therefore our responses. But as I have read, researched, and listened to multiple discussions regarding environmental justice, there have been some common and consistent themes. The first is, how do we accurately, equitably, and comprehensively measure environmental justice impacts? And one concept that I believe is gaining acceptance and has been put forth here in Louisville relates to the concept of cumulative impacts. While there are multiple ways to measure environmental justice impacts, measuring environmental justice with a cumulative impacts approach by assessing the cumulative impact of environmental injustices can provide planners and residents with a more comprehensive understanding of the inequities by going beyond the traditional measures of toxicity. In addition to measuring environmental and health hazards, cumulative impact methods examine social and economic vulnerabilities that affect community susceptibility to environmental injustices. And one such measure that I've seen out there includes the Environmental Justice Screening Method, EJSM, which was developed jointly by researchers and community members. The EJSM derives a cumulative impact score based on 29 indicators that are organized into 3 categories. First category is hazard proximity and land use. The second is air pollution exposure and estimated health risk. And the third is social and health vulnerability. The score reflects an area's overall health burden, which helps local and regional governments, community groups, and other stakeholders identify and prioritize areas of high need within their community. As I've mentioned often and previously, prioritization will be important given the resource constraints and the need to address the most pressing health needs first. And to that end, the Metro Department of Health and Wellness here in Louisville has already identified equity as a health issue. Secondly, we have to find the best ways of authentically collaborating with communities. Community involvement is at the core of achieving environmental justice. It is critical at all stages of planning, not just at the federally mandated public meetings that take place late in the planning process. Authentic community participation requires an earnest investment in resources and community-based partnerships to get people involved early in the process. Traditional means of community engagement, such as one-time public meetings held at inconvenient times and locations and near the end of planning processes, may disenfranchise impacted residents or those for whom formal methods of gathering community opinions are intimidating. To ensure that the benefits and burdens of new plans and projects are equally distributed, Those implementing these activities should get people involved early, provide them with resources so that they can fully participate, and ensure that outcomes reflect their participation and local needs. Planning for the next environmental justice issue, climate change. While climate change will affect everyone, evidence suggests it will deeply impact the most vulnerable communities. For instance, with the onset of climate change, these communities, vulnerable communities, will suffer more extreme weather events, breathe dirtier air, pay more for basic necessities, and have fewer or shifting job opportunities. And while addressing climate change could therefore serve the imperative of environmental justice, policymakers cannot assume that all climate change strategies promote health and equity for all. Quick example, for instance, while smart growth initiatives help reduce overall vehicle emissions through compact development, these strategies could lead to the concentration of pollutants around transit centers that are often located near environmental justice communities. Therefore, policymakers may need to consider supplemental strategies such as surcharges to force emissions reductions in highly impacted areas and community benefit funds to support neighborhoods that disproportionately bear climate change burden. Currently, community-based efforts are leading the charge in putting forth equitable climate change planning initiatives, and planners would do well to partner with community-based organizations doing climate justice work through consultation, through funding, and other resource allocation. This is the work that needs to be done to address environmental justice and to do it equitably. And I really just wanted to try to bring all of these discussions that I've been having over the last few months and try to tie them all together as we continue this work. We have been working diligently with our Metro partners, looking at, again, at nationally at what's being done across the country, because I think everyone on this WebEx understands the importance of environmental justice and the importance of doing that environmental justice work equitably. So if there are no questions for me at this time, we'll move on to the next agenda items, but first I'll wait and see if there are any questions.
Are there any questions from any of the board members or comments regarding Mr. Talley's report? Hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Talley, for a very detailed report.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Next up, we will have a presentation, and I will turn it over to Tom. We have a short video that we're going to show that was produced by Metro TV, and it really highlights our air monitoring system and how it works, taking a detailed look at our air monitoring sites. Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you want to provide a little additional background, that would be helpful.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right. So we partnered with Metro TV to give a virtual tour of our air monitoring sites after request by the board. So hopefully our presentation is insightful, and I'll be happy to answer any questions after the video presentation. And I think Andy will be starting our video any moment.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are there any questions?
Oh, yes, I have one question. What is the prevailing wind direction in Louisville?
That's seasonal, and I would have to look into some data to get you the exact answer to that.
Okay. One other question. Do we have a control site? Used to be one at Shelby Campus off of Shelbyville Road. Do we have a site that we consider control?
Mr. Hilton?
Yes.
This is Rachel. That site was used as a control site during the West Louisville air toxic study and maintained by the University of Louisville.
Okay.
Due to development at the Shelby campus, that site is no longer being operated.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from board members?
I have a question. Do the parameters measured at the stations, do they ever vary between stations? I mean, do you monitor for something new at a station very often?
Well, we don't change and monitor for new things. We have to put that into our network plan and get that approved. As far as readings being localized from station to station, that's really dependent upon pollutants and seasonal variability as well. Just to give a broad example, generally ozone is more homogeneous amongst stations that we see it in, whereas nitrogen dioxide may have a little more localized variability.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from board members? If not, Tom, that was a very excellent video. I was really taken back with the amount of equipment that the APCD they have out in the field. So that's great. Thank you very much.
Chairman Hilton?
Yes.
This is Billy DeWitt. I just wanted to add to your question about prevailing wind.
Right.
The prevailing wind in this area comes from the southwest, the south-southwest.
South-southwest, okay.
That's where it comes from. So it blows towards the north-northeast.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Chairman Hilton, this is Rachel. We will be posting this video to our website and would like to thank Tom and also his partner at Metro TV for taking the board on a tour of our air monitoring network. Unfortunately, it's something we can't do right now with COVID, and really appreciate the hard work and effort that Tom put into this to bring you some idea of the work that our air monitoring section does.
Yes, I would be delighted to visit these monitoring sites when this COVID-19 pandemic is over. Thank you very much, Mrs. Hampton. Any other questions or comments? Excellent video.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, let me also just add my thanks to Tom. He did an outstanding job, and he really just has an ability to break this information down and make it very understandable for folks, so we appreciate that. Next up, as part of the director's report, we have a presentation by MSD. And this, as mentioned earlier, this presentation regards an NOV that the district issued in November 2019. This is really just an interim update. Once it is completed, the district will prepare an agreed board order which will encompass the plans that MSD is putting together, and then we will bring that ABO before the board. Not sure who will be leading this. I'm assuming maybe Brian Bingham or Robin Birch.
Prior to MSD's presentation, Steve Gravett, if Andy will please elevate Steve Gravett to a panelist, will provide a little context and introduction before MSD's presentation begins with Brian Bingham.
Hello, this is Brian. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Excellent. I love when technology works. Robin Birch is with me. Robin Birch is with me today, and she is going to try to share her screen now. But before as she's working on that, let me open with a couple of comments. I want to very much thank the Air Pollution Control District. What? Yes.
Can we let Steve Gravett give a little presentation ahead
yes,
of you?
I'm sorry. Absolutely.
So sorry.
No. Just tell me when to go.
Sorry. The technology works fine. It's the people part. Sorry about that.
All right. Thank you, everybody. The district issued a notice of violation to MSD on November 4th of 2019 for violations of District Regulation 113, control of objectionable odors. The violation was issued for a series of odor complaints in July and August of 2019, primarily in the Chickasaw, California, and Park Duval neighborhoods. Residents complained to the district approximately 46 times in that period of odors they described as rotten eggs, feces, and sewage. District compliance officers responded to these complaints and during their investigations observed the odors and determined they were coming from storm drains and from the Morris-Foreman Water Quality Treatment Center. The NOV included actions that MSD would need to take to return to compliance and to prevent the reoccurrence of these types of violations. These actions included developing odor control plans for both Morris-Foreman facility and the collection system, a maintenance and repair plan for the collection system, and a plan for improving communications between MSD and the public. The intent of these requirements was to create a lasting solution for the community rather than a Band-Aid fix for one or two spots. MSD has worked with us since we issued the NOV on scoping these projects and are going to discuss their ambitious plans with you today. Thanks, Brian.
Brian, thank you very much. It's your turn now.
All right. Sorry about that. I can see you all well, but there was a little bit of breaking up, so I didn't catch that initially. I would like to start out by thanking the Air Pollution Control District, the board, all of the staff, but especially Assistant Director Hamilton and Director Talley. You all have been wonderful to work with. We operate a system that even on its finest and best day can create odors and can create problems for the community. So it's something we have always been very diligent about trying to work through, and we continue to refine and add additional resources to be able to do so. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go into these. These are the permits that we either have ongoing or pending through APCD. Staff's always very professional, very wonderful to work with. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because Mr. Gravett has already talked about this in more detail than I have. But I do want to add one thing, even though this notice of violation is for a specific period and specific areas, a lot of the items that we're going to implement are going to be community-wide. We are going to focus on these specific areas early on in that process to give them the attention that they need and deserve, but we intend to carry all of the things through the other areas as well. a little bit of detail of what was outlined that we shall develop and implement. And I'm not going to read all these, but basically odor control plan for Morris Foreman Water Quality Treatment Facility. This is the oldest and largest facility in our system, actually the largest in the state of Kentucky by far. It is located on Algonquin Parkway in West Louisville. It is a facility that we originally constructed in the 50s, did a major expansion in the 70s, major input into the 90s. Now we're doing a lot of upgrades there now, and in the next several years, we will be spending, well, in the last 6 years, we've spent over $50 million there, and we're going to be spending far more than that over the next 10, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million there. We have tried a lot of different things as far as communication planning. The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly changed the way the world meets, works, talks. We are going to try to incorporate that. We do know that there is no single way to communicate that is going to reach everyone we need to. We are going to have a multifaceted approach, and we'll be bringing you more details on that as we go along. We are going to do an odor plan for a large portion of West Louisville, so it includes the areas that were specified in the NOV, but it's the larger surrounding area, because while those areas may have had the bulk of the complaints, they certainly weren't the only ones that were impacted, and we believe it'd be better to do that whole area as one time. We do have some maintenance and service schedules that we use routinely. We're going to be working to update those, but also to make those more publicly available. And then the last thing on this slide, we'll work on a publicly available report and resolution log. So every request that comes in, every complaint that comes in, we will document what we did as an investigation, what we found, what we're doing going forward. The one big step that we've taken just in the last several months here, Robin Birch is on the call. She has had some duties changed and been promoted. She is now our odor control and biosolids manager. Biosolids are the solids that are what's left of the process after we go through the treatment process. That can be a very large odor source. It is also a system that we had a pretty significant failure on within the last year or so. We are spending about $40 million right now on, I hate to call it, but an interim solution. That long-term solution is more in the $200 million range, but the interim solution is showing significant improvement thus far, and the last pieces of it will come on over the next couple of months. Robin, would you like to say hello or any words? You're muted if you're... All right, I'm going to go ahead then. I'm not sure if it's... Oh, there you are.
There we are. I thought I hit unmute. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with everyone.
Right. Thank you. And just I will say a little bit more about Robin. Robin is one of many people that we have in our organization that really makes things move. She gets things moving. Nothing sits and waits. She's always got to be in motion, and everything around her has to be in motion. So I think she's the perfect person to lead this effort, both in these areas. She has worked at the Morris Foreman Treatment Plant for the last many years. She will stay located at the Morris Foreman Treatment Plant, so she's probably right, what I would call, on the edge of the biggest area we're talking about, but she's also in the middle of the biggest facility we have and has access to all the resources across our district and across our community, and we look forward to the great things that she'll be able to accomplish. Next slide, please. So getting into a little more of the meat of the thing, we have certain amounts of expertise in-house between Robin, and we've got other folks in our various divisions who are experts on odors in those areas. And let me take a half a step back and say our treatment plants can be the source of odors. It was mentioned storm drains or catch basins. That's especially true, and I'll show you a map in a few minutes, of our combined sewer area where all of the wastewater and stormwater go to the same pipe system, and I'll explain how and why odors get out of there and some of the things that we're doing to address those. We can also have problems at our pump stations And the force mains where if we can't gravity flow the sewage and we have to pump it, as part of those systems, we'll have air release valves to break the vacuum in there to be able to drain it. And sometimes those will let air out, and we've done some things to improve those. We'll talk more about that later. But what this slide is mostly about is that we have gone through a procurement. We have brought AECOM, a recognized regional expert in odor control and the types of systems that we need. We have brought them on to augment and lead the development of this plan. Our staff will be very involved. Robin will be involved on a daily basis, but we need more resources than we have, and we need certain expertise that's beyond our knowledge. So we have brought them on. We're very excited about that. We are working through the scope of work with them right now. You see the couple of items that are listed there. I've mentioned, I think, most of those, and the time frame, and we'll get to schedules, but the entire master plan, I don't like that term. The entire odor control plan will be a multi-phase, multi-year project. That does not mean the areas covered in the NOV will be multi-year, and like I said, we'll get to that. We are putting an emphasis on this, but we will intend to carry this process through our entire community. Next slide, please. These are the phase 1 deliverables, and as you can see, all of those fall in next year. Those quarter numbers, quarter 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, are the calendar year quarters, not our fiscal year. We are going to go through. We're doing a lot of review work right now. We're getting AECOM up to speed. While they may be experts, we have a lot of knowledge that they don't have about our system, so we're doing information exchange. We're doing knowledge sharing and getting them up to speed there. So Morse formula, big focus. The collection system, and that is basically all of the system from where any wastewater leaves a home or business or any other entity and travels through that system until it gets to our treatment plant. That is what we refer to as our collection system. The pump stations, and most of those work extremely well. We do have a couple of them that we've had some issues with. We put some pretty innovative things in place. We're trying some different things out. We'll be trying more. There is a planned process modification review. There is an effort to go through an odor impact evaluation. And with that said, I will say this. Anytime anybody smells an odor, that's an issue to us. And while we would love to tell you that when we get to the end of this, no one will ever call an odor in again, I'm going to be really honest and say, even in our best day, there is the chance for some odor to get out. We have made tremendous improvement over the last 20 years. We still have a lot of work to do. We're still nowhere near where we want to be. We don't want reoccurring odor complaints. We want it to be more like, can you believe there was an odor? We haven't had one of those in X number of days, weeks, months, years, whatever. Instead of okay, how many did we get today? And that is something that we all check every single day. I've got a little thing that stays up on my computer, and it's not many most days. It might be 1 or 2, but that's 1 or 2 too many. Sampling program results, technology things, and then we'll come up with all that, and we'll roll that into a conceptual design, and then we'll have a final report for the phase 1 part of it. And the phase 1 part of it includes the NOV areas. Robin, I get that right?
You did.
All right, thank you. Item 2 of the NOV, the communication. There's we got a little bit of a hiccup here. We have selected a firm, and just to be, I can say this publicly, we have run into a bit of a procurement issue. We don't think this is going to greatly change our schedule, but we do have a few additional things to work through on our side, and we do have contingency plans should we have an insurmountable obstacle to overcome here. We've got a backup plan. So no worries there, but as I said, we think we're pretty good at communicating with the public, but we haven't always had the successes we wanted, so we're bringing some outside expertise, professional communications firm in to assist us with this. They've already thrown out some ideas of some things that we hadn't tried before. They've also thrown out some adjustments to the things that we have tried. So we believe this will be a wonderful partnership, and we look forward to telling you all who that actually is. I apologize, I can't do that right now, but as we work through the contract, we're still doing a lot of work on the inside, planning and preparing to go forward with this. And it's going to be, as I said, a change in technologies. We're going to do more online, more virtual. We would love to, hopefully if the pandemic eases up or if we get a vaccine that works, we would love to do a lot of in-person meetings. Instead, we're going to try to do them as close to in-person as we can get, but we want to make sure that we're all being safe and social distancing and keeping everything within the guidelines that the mayor and the governor have put out for our community. I mentioned earlier the combined sewer area. So I know a couple of you all have been on the board since I made a presentation 3 or 4 years ago. Several of you are new. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but anything that I bring up, I welcome questions either as we go through it or at the end. This is a map that you can see the Ohio River kind of to the north and to the west, and you can see the outline of Jefferson County, kind of the orangish color. Those green areas are the large park areas. And then the purple shaded area is the combined sewer system. And it doesn't exactly follow it, but it's most of what is inside of the Watterson Expressway, except to the far eastern part, and then a little bit to the, I guess I would call that the southeastern part. And then it goes outside of the Watterson Expressway in the airport and over towards Iroquois Park areas. That, as you see, the southern tip of that purple touches that larger green area. That is Iroquois Park. These are the areas that are the oldest areas, the most densely populated areas of Louisville that were constructed through the early to mid 50s is when those systems stopped being constructed. We have done evaluations. We have looked at, there is no economical way that this community can afford to separate those systems into a separate stormwater system and a sanitary system. So what we're trying to do is find all the ways to get all the benefits out of having that large dual system, but to offset and minimize the negatives. And odor is one of the biggest negatives. So can you go to the next slide, please?
I wish I could, but my PowerPoint has just failed. I'm getting like a Citrix error saying it's no longer able to connect.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep talking, and you keep trying to see if it can reset or something. But and I will start describing. I'll go in a little more detail of what you're going to see on the next slide, and make sure that I know the next slides if I have them.
It describes how the combined sewer works.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it and mostly there is one diagram, and we can bring this back up. But our combined sewer system is about 680 miles of pipe. There are 24,000 catch basins. So remember, as I said, the stormwater goes into the same pipe system as the sanitary. Wonderful. So 24,000 catch basins. And these are generally our largest pipes. The largest of them is the southwestern outfall, which ends up kind of at Bells Lane area, Bells Lane or Cane Run Road, and that pipe is 18.5 feet wide and 27 feet tall. You could put a locomotive through it. That's how large that system is. That was built in the 30s, and it keeps much of our community from flooding, or at least keeps it from flooding long before it does flood. But it also carries wastewater along with several other large systems. If you look at the diagram there, what you'll see from left to right, you see a depiction of a catch basin or a storm drain inlet or whatever you want to call that. So that one's shown at the curb line. You see the curb box there, and then you see the grate on top, or the inlet, catch basin inlet. It drops down in through, and then you see it goes down into a lower chamber, and then on the far right, you'll see a pipe that kind of turns up and goes out. What that does is this fills up with water, and the water will stay in that sump area of the catch basin that it's draining to, and that will keep the odors from backing up. But what it does is it keeps the odors from backing up, and it keeps the solids and floatables, soft drink bottles or whatever somebody's thrown on the street that might get washed in there. It keeps those from getting into our system as well. And we have a schedule, and I'll talk about that in a minute, to clean those. But one of the big problems that we have, especially, these last few weeks before yesterday and the day before it's rained, we had a very long dry period. So that slows the flow down in this area because you don't have any of that groundwater or rainwater mixing into it. It lets that wastewater be stronger. It lets it start to take and go through the chemical process that creates the odors that are objectionable. And then the final and the worst part of that is it dries out these sump areas so that gases can start to escape out. So when we talk about, and we're going to talk about Park Duval in a moment and show you some examples there, that is what's happening, is that these sumps are drying out in some cases, or in other cases, many of these were constructed by the developers of the time, some of them by the community, some of them by MSD, without the trap in there at all. So they're straight pipe there, and that lets odors out. So the ones that are trapped, if we get a call in that area, we go put water in, we disinfect, and we can make it go away very quickly. The ones that aren't trapped, that requires a bigger fix, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Next slide, please. So before I get to the Park Duval area, I'm going to give you a little bit bigger scale. We do have a schedule where every 18 months or sooner, we go through and we inspect and clean each one of those. And by cleaning, we basically vector them out, all the sediment, debris, paper, cigarette butts, anything that goes in there. We get that out and we refill them with water. And you see that the combined area is broken into 14 districts, and you see the number of catch basins in each one. So there's about 1,100 to 3,000 in each one of those. They were set up not necessarily to be equal. They're set up to be able to take areas that made sense to logically work through. Because when we go through all the way through them, and let's just say we get through them in 15 months one time, we go back and start over. We don't wait till the 18 months is up to start over. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but you can see how those are broken up. And then there are some sub areas within those 14 areas. Let's go and go to the next slide, please. So Park Duval, and I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this, but if, Robin, will your mouse show up on there?
You see my red highlighter?
I don't. So, oh yeah, I do now. Yes, I do. Okay. Can you go to one of the trapped catch basins? That's the
trapped are the kind of the teal blue color.
Right. So as you see the map, and what I've noticed when I look at this map and I'm looking at a certain color, those kind of jump out at me. Now go to the untrapped one, which are more the orangish, yellowish orangish color. Once you start looking at that, you realize there are a lot of areas that there are untrapped catch basins. And Park Duval is a very interesting area because there are some of the systems that are very old, and then some of the system is very new. So this was an area that was, the city of Louisville did a tremendous project and greatly improved this area. As a matter of fact, we have a number of employees at MSD that live in this neighborhood. So not only do we hear from the people that call in, but as a matter of fact, I don't know if he was able to be on today, but Damon Talley, our wastewater treatment director, lives in this area and operates out of the Morris Foreman treatment plant. So he very, very, very well knows the problem that's going on here. So when we looked at that, and go to the next slide, please, we've got some statistics. So there are 197 catch basins in Park Duval. We had 14 of them that were missing the plugs. And can you go back a couple slides to show that diagram again?
So the missing plugs are outlined in red.
Oh, okay. But go back before that. Go back to the diagram of the catch basin for a second. I meant to point this out and forgot. So if you see, can you point to the plugs there on the, so where it goes out to the right, there's a straight line above there. It just right there is a plug. And what that does, it totally bypasses the trap if that's out. And sometimes those can blow out in a big storm event. Sometimes we have to take those out for maintenance of the system. That's why they're there, is to be able to maintain the system. All right, go back. Please go back forward to the slide we were on. So 14 of those were missing. They've all been replaced. There are 88 of the 197 catch basins that are trapped, which is good. but there are 109 that are not trapped, which is really, really bad. So there are 109 places that odors can very easily escape our system in this area alone, and the general number that we put on these is about $5,000 a piece, but truthfully, they range from $5,000 to about $25,000 to tear them out and reinstall one with a trap. Now, we will be bringing a plan back later this year, actually probably be early next calendar year, on how much money we can dedicate to this area. This is one of the first areas we're going to do, and if you can go to the next slide, please. So this map, and sorry that our maps look a little different, but each one is to illustrate something. Here you can see, again, the trapped and untrapped catch basins. They're different colors, but more importantly, you see the heat dots or the heat things. So you see the ones that have kind of yellow or orange in the middle, and then red around them. Those are the largest number of complaints. And then as you see those get littler and littler, and as they fade to blue, those mean that we've gotten complaints, but they're not as much. So what we will be doing is we will be taking the monies that we were able to allocate in our next capital budget, or in this, what I'm trying to do is move some money at the end of this year and do some this year, and then I'm asking for money for next year, and we'll be able to tell both of those after the first of the year. And what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the highest number of requests or complaints first, and we'll work our way through the system. So I don't know how far we'll be able to get, but we will be reporting that back. But there's two other things I want to point out on this map. One, this is also very close to Morris Foreman. So we're going to we'll look at the data, and it'll be based on the odor complaints that are associated with those catch basins, which is still going to be much what's shown here. And two, we're looking at to make sure that there aren't any other ways that we can do these. So I'm not going to get into the detail here, but you'll see clusters of these, and there might be a way that we can trap a cluster of them instead of each one individually, which may give us more bang for the dollar, or more importantly to the residents there, give us more solutions installed quicker. Next slide, please. And I believe this is actually the last thing, but I'll be happy to take questions on anything. We talked about the report and resolution log. This is something that Ms. Hamilton and Mr. Talley and the entire staff has very, very much pushed for. This is something, we believe ourselves at MSD to be very transparent, but we have so much data and we don't always get all of it out there. This is something that we are going to start manually uploading by December 10th of this year to our website where people can see it. And then we're working on automating a process, and we'll have that done sometime in the spring. But we'll be putting these up, I believe it's monthly, the manual uploads, and then we're working on how the frequency of the automated will work. But it should be something that's updated much more quickly. Robin, is there anything that I missed or that you would like to add at this point?
No, sir. You did a good job. I think you covered most of it. Be happy to take questions, though, from the board.
One last thing I want to point out, because I brought up the discussion a little bit of our capital budget, and we went through an effort with the community, kind of wrapped up about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, and it was a 2-year process before that, where we took all of our issues and all of our concerns out to the public, and we asked for support for a larger than what our board is allowed to do rate increase. We were met with a lot of people that said, absolutely, this is important, yes, but you know what, no, we're not going to support you. We were not able to bring the issue to a vote with Metro Council. We didn't have the votes. What we are doing instead is we are trying to rework some of our capital planning. We are trying to rework some of our other regulatory obligations. We'll be putting more about that out later, but we're in discussions of whether we could change some things around and be able to free up more money to take care of more odor concerns sooner, as well as some large flooding or drainage concerns as well. Don't know where that's going to go, but I can tell you this. The MSD board, our executive director, Tony Parrott, our complete executive staff, everyone fully supports moving as many dollars as we can into this area It's never going to be as much money as we want, as fast as we want, but it will, I can promise you this, it will be a significant investment, and you will continue to see what I believe will be dramatic improvement in our system. You know, with that said, I'm not going to say we've not spent enough, because I believe we have spent a lot. As a matter of fact, I've got an item that is going to our board on Monday, which is for odor control at our pump stations. That is a contract that we work out. We just rebid that. That's $1.2 million a year. So, I mean, these are all big dollar things, but, you know, we've got 260,000 customers. We have 3,300 miles of pipe. We have five treatment plants before we just acquired a system in Oldham County, which is some smaller plants. We know this is a priority. It will be a focus. It will be a priority. We will be happy to come back and update you all, or provide information for Mr. Talley and Ms. Hamilton to update you all as frequently as you all want to hear about it, because we believe it's important. With that, now I would love to have any questions that you all might ask.
Chairman Hilton, before you begin, this is Rachel Hamilton. I do want to remind the board that this is an interim update, and that to resolve the violations, we'll be putting these commitments from MSD into an agreed board order that we'll bring to the board for consideration later this fall. That will include public hearing.
Okay, thank you for that update. Any comments or questions from the board members?
I have a question. On average, how many complaints are received in a year, and during what months or what part of the year do most of the complaints come?
Let me start, and then I'll ask Robin if she's got more details to go. I'll start with your second part of your question first. The dry summer months are by far our biggest odor complaint time. And there's two reasons for that. One, those catch basins dry out like I talked about. But two, it's just that in the wintertime, people aren't out as much. In the spring, summer, fall, they're out more, so they have more exposure to them. I don't know a number per year. I can tell you that there is very seldom a day where we get more than 2 or 3, and there are many days we get 0. Robin, do you have a ballpark number?
And that's tough for me right now. One of the things that's on my list to do is to start developing metrics for the odor complaints. Since I have mostly been at Morris Foreman, I only track Morris Foreman historically. And on a typical year, it's about a dozen just for Morris Foreman. Now, that does not include our service area or the collection system. So I know there are more odor complaints than that. But that is one item that I will be gathering data on as I move forward. But as you did say, Brian, September and October generally is the highest months, just because we are slow on rain, and those catch basins typically will start giving us the most problems.
Let me add a little more, since Robin hasn't gotten this far on there yet, and I look on a daily basis, but I really don't keep track on a monthly or yearly. But I have a few times through our discussions with the APCD staff, we have pulled some of that up. I do know that there was a 5-year period I looked at, and it's not including the current year, that I think we were averaging 250 or 300 a year. But one of the issues is we don't always get them reported to us. So we'll go out to public meetings at time, and somebody will say, well, you know, I had an odor last month. Well, that didn't get into the system. So one of the big parts of the outreach effort we're going to do is to tell people the most important thing you can do to help us help you is tell us when the odor is. I mean, if you can call it in when it's happening. So MSD actually has live people available, answer the phones 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The sooner we can know and document it, the more likely we are to be able to pinpoint the reason for it and help keep that from happening. So while I think the number is 250 to 300 in a year, we know that is far lower than what people are actually smelling. And one of the outreach efforts is to get better data so that we can do a better job of responding to them.
Do we have any other questions from any other board members?
let me point out while you are thinking of questions that we also have Jackie Quarles, our Deputy General Counsel, is watching on the call, and Damon Talley, our Treatment Director, is on the call watching as well. So we do have some others that aren't presenting today that are very interested and very involved. The four of us as a core team.
Okay. Well, Brian, on behalf of the board members, I want to thank you very much for the presentation, and we look forward to another future visit with some updates.
Thank you, sir, and we look forward to the great working relationship we've got going with APCD.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton, and we have a question under our chat about, does APCD get odor complaints about the sewers on Sonoma City, or is there some other mechanism used? In the past, APCD and MSD used the same system. So when a complaint was lodged through that system, we both got notice that there was a sewage odor being observed. We investigated, and MSD did their work. And we could see some of their actions through that linked computer system. Now that we in Metro Government have moved to Acela, we no longer have that link to MSD. You can report odors to APCD through a variety of measures. We get Sonoma City reports directly. We have shared those with MSD. They go directly to their industrial waste department, as well as their key people, so that their staff are informed of those. APCD, you can call us. You can send us an email through our website. You can send us information via Metro 311 or call Metro 311. You can call us directly. We'll take information about odors that you're observing through just about any means other than smoke signals. So we do have, Keith, I'm going to go ahead, and seems like a good time to mention that Monday night, the 27th, Tuesday night. So on October 27th, we will be holding a Clearing the Air workshop series on odors. That's a really great time for those on the call to learn more about how APCD investigates odors, evaluates odors, and how you can help us understand what you're observing in the environment. Keith?
Okay.
Carl, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. I just want to, MSD mentioned they have a complaint hotline that is manned 24/7. That is different from the APCD, isn't it?
Yes, and let me explain something about that. So one of the reasons why, and we've talked many times over the years of whether we should continue that, and we've always said yes, because when our services fail, we're the only utility that can invade your home. If sewage backs up in your home, we don't want anyone to have to wait till the next morning. So we feel very strongly that we will always have to do that. Even in these times where we may have people answering phones, we may have shifted the phones to their homes, they're still working 24/7. And APCD has been wonderful to work with on all those things. And Rachel pointed out the ways. We can also, you can get to us through the web. There's lots of other ways as well.
Okay.
Rachel, not to cut you off, but I just wanted to point out why we do that when many others don't.
All right. Thank you very much.
Chairman Hilton, my colleagues have helped me keep track of where I'm at through the chapter here. A couple things I want to mention. Damon Talley will be presenting with us in the workshop. He is MSD's Director of Treatment, so he'll be helping folks understand their operations. If you want to call APCD about odor complaints, our number is 574-6000. Brian, do you want to share your number?
Yes, it's 540-6000.
Okay. Thank you.
And we also have a question on the chat.
Is for MSD, is it feasible to replace just the trap rather than rebuild the basin?
We do have to repair the traps sometimes. It's the problem is most of the untrapped basins are just, there's nothing there at all. There is no trap. Now we can have a problem at time, and one of the things that we do as soon as we find them, we will find if a trap cracks. So in other words, if it leaks and all the water drains out, we'll have a problem. Those are really fast repairs. So yes, there are ways that we can repair them if they were trapped originally. But if they're not trapped, they have to have totally dig it out and pour a new concrete structure.
Okay, very good. Well, again, thank you very much for excellent presentation.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the entire board.
Moving along, we also we received the air quality data. Are there any questions or comments from the board members regarding the information regarding air quality data?
No questions.
No questions?
No.
What about the enforcement status report? Any questions or comments regarding the enforcement status report?
No questions.
Thank you. What about the excess emission report? Any questions or comments?
No.
No questions.
Okay. Thank you. Complaint investigation status report? Summary?
No.
No questions.
Well, thank you. Well, I think we've gone through all our agenda items. I would now adjourn the meeting, and I will look forward for your participation at the next board meeting, Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 at 10 a.m. Thank you very much for your participation.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting that's on October 27th, how do you access that meeting? Is it on a website or is there a link? How do you get to the meeting?
Excellent question. Thank you so much for asking that, Ms. Allen. If you go to APCD's website, you look under the Clearing the Air Workshop Series, and when you drill